If you're thinking about starting Amazon FBA in 2026, this video is for you. That's because in today's video, we're going to be going through absolutely everything that you need to know to start FBA Amazon properly. We're going to be talking about the account setup, the product research, and how to go and source products. But more importantly, we're going to be talking about the financial side that a lot of people skip. Because in the end of the day, that is what decides if your business is either make or break, and if it's for you. So let's get into the video. So the first thing that you are going to have to go and do is sign up to an Amazon Seller Central account. Now, if you're in the UK, that's going to be sellercentral.amazon.uk, and if you're in America, that's going to be sellercentral.amazon.com. But there are other sites for other nationalities, so just go and find the respected site. Then once you're on that, what you're going to do is you are going to go and sign up for an account. Now you can sign up for a personal account or you can go and sign up for a business account. And it's also going to ask you to connect your bank details and ID for proof of authentication. But we do actually have a full video covering this, so go and make sure to check that out and then come back to the video. So you've now made your brand new Amazon Seller Central account. Now we're going to talk about, which in my personal opinion is the most fun bit, and that is sourcing the products that you're going to go and sell. So there are four main methods, and I'd say even two main methods that especially new sellers are going to be using. And we're going to go through each one, talk about the benefits, the negatives, and kind of at what point you might be using each sourcing method. So the first method that we're going to be talking about is going to be online arbitrage. I would say that personally this is one of the first two methods that a lot of new sellers will go and use. What is online arbitrage? Well, online arbitrage is where you will go through a whole host of sites and basically you're trying to find deals. For example, maybe you're trying to find stuff that's about 50% off. And the idea is that there is a big enough margin between what you're buying it for and what you're going to go and sell it on Amazon for. So this method is really friendly for new sellers because you can just choose the quantities you want to buy. So when I first started off, I was maybe buying 3 to 5 items, but then the more experience you get, you maybe even end up buying over 100, but it is all in your control. Whereas some of the other sourcing methods, you might have to buy a minimum of 100 units, a minimum of 500 units, which especially if you're new and just started out, that's quite a big risk to go and take. So this sounds great. You can go across loads of websites, you can go and just buy stuff that may be 50% off. So what are the actual negatives of using online arbitrage? Well, the negatives of using online arbitrage is everyone kind of has access to the exact same websites. For example, I'm on Argos and every single Amazon seller can be on Argos. So what can end up happening is something can look like it's 50% off, it can look like it's going to be a really good deal. And again, I've had this happen in the past. You buy it, but so do 50, 60 people. So a listing might go from only 10 sellers all the way up to 70 sellers. And now that a lot of people are competing, well, that price is normally going to come down on the product, and that thing that, you know, was 50% off and looked like a great deal actually might end up being break even or at worst selling for a loss. So the second method we're going to be talking about is going to be retail arbitrage. Retail arbitrage is like online arbitrage, but we're doing it in person. So again, we have really good control over the quantity. You know, we can just go and buy 1 unit, we can go and buy 5 units. But what the benefit over online arbitrage is we're buying it in person. Because we're buying it in person, that deal might not necessarily be available for everyone on Amazon. Because like I said, you know, everyone has same access to the same sites online. If I maybe go in person and I go through a clearance aisle, and on this clearance aisle there's a really good deal, other shops around the UK might not have the same offers. And also, once all 5 units, all 10 units are off the shelf, then no one potentially can go and buy the rest of the units, meaning I have a lot less competition. But the negatives of going and using this method is you do have to go and leave the comfort of your own home, and on top of that you do go and incur costs such as petrol. So one of the main problems with this method is it is quite hard to scale. Because like I said, you know, if you might go to a clearance and there might be 5 or 10 and brilliant, you go and buy all 5 or 10 and now your competition can't go and buy them, but you could only go and buy 5 and 10. Whereas if we're online, a lot of the times you might be able to go and buy 50, you might be able to go and buy over 100 if a deal is really good. So basically with this method, it's really nice when you start out because you can go and buy 10 lots of 10 different products. But when you do go and scale up, you can't go and buy 100 of those units because it's quite unlikely that there'll be 100 units in a clearance, but it definitely does happen. So now I'm going to move on to 2 of the more advanced methods. Again, quite rare to see new users use these, but of course, if you have the right guidance, they can be very effective. And the first of that is going to be wholesale. Now, wholesale is a little bit like online arbitrage, where we're going through sites one by one. But you don't normally have the luxury of only going and buying 3 or 5. So for example, if you're not too sure on a unit and you don't have great analysis or haven't got much history of analysing deals in the past, it might be quite risky because you might end up having to buy 100 of a unit and 500 a unit. And again, in the past, I've looked at stuff going, alright, I'll happily buy 100, but then maybe I've gone and missed out on 1 or 2 details, or maybe it's been oversaturated. So the benefit of this is you can normally get prices a lot cheaper at wholesale than you can go on online arbitrage. The main negatives is you normally have to buy in quite high quantity, which especially if you're working on a low budget isn't great because you ideally want to diversify your product range rather than going all in on one product for the sake of risk management. So the last method we are going to be talking about is private label. Private label is kind of you either make your own product or you find a product out there and you kind of slap your own sort of branding on it and then you go and sell it on Amazon. Again, this has a very, very high upfront cost because of course you're kind of manufacturing normally thousands or hundreds if not thousands of units, and on top of that you kind of need to build the brand up because you're kind of creating a product out of absolutely nowhere, so there isn't that initial demand on Amazon. Whereas maybe with online arbitrage or retail arbitrage, we're kind of selling a product that already exists on Amazon, so it's got the reviews and it's got the demand. Whereas with private label, obviously we're creating our own product. So of course, long term this can have very, very high profits, but you do have to appreciate it is a kind of a very different game than online and retail arbitrage. But again, it can also be another profitable sourcing method on Amazon. Whichever business model you do decide to go with, it is vital that you accurately track your numbers from the beginning. And this is what separates profitable businesses who are making educated decisions off of the stats and facts, rather than those who are fake. So if you want to be running off of accurate data from the get-go, make sure to go and check out SellerToolKit. There is a free trial in the link in the description, and you don't have to add any payment details. It connects up with your Amazon Seller Central account, and it shows you real profits, fees, and the health of your inventory in real time. Let's get back to the video. So once you've sourced your stock and you have gone and received it, you now need to go and send this into one of Amazon's fulfillment centers. Now we do have a full video on this, so feel free to go and check that out, but I'll give you a brief run through nonetheless. So the first thing that you are going to have to do is basically tell Amazon what you want to go and sell, because Amazon doesn't have every single product associated to your Amazon Seller Central account. So how do we go and add a product to our Amazon Seller Central account? Well, what we do is we click on the menu at the top left. We're going to go to catalog and we're going to go to add products. That is then going to go and take you to this menu here. And then what you can do is you can either type in the title of the product, you can type in the ASIN, you can type in the barcode. So for example, I'm going to be using that right there. We type it in and then the product appears. Now you're going to talk about what condition, more likely than not it's going to be brand new. And then you're going to go to either apply to sell the product if you haven't already unlocked it. If not, you're going to go to sell this product. And from there, it's basically going to create a product page where you can talk about the price you want to list it for. You can create a FNSKU and what marketplaces you want to sell the product on. So once you've added the products that you want to go and sell on Amazon via the catalog, you're now going to go and create an inbound shipment plan. And to go and create this, you're going to go into the menu on the top left. You're going to go to inventory and then you're going to go down to shipments. And once you're in shipments, what you can do is you're then going to go to send to Amazon under the shipments menu at the top. So now what you need to do is you now need to go through the units that you're going to go and send in one by one and also talk about what quantity you're sending in. Also, if you are sending in products that do have an expiry date, it's also going to go and ask for that expiry date. And for every single unit, you're either going to be using the default barcode, but more likely than not, you're going to be using an FNSKU barcode. Now, what is an FNSKU barcode? This is basically a barcode that associates that product to yourself. Because lots of people might be sending in the same products, but obviously maybe some other people might be sending it in worse condition, maybe it's slightly damaged. So that your units don't get mixed up with their units, what we do is we put on a barcode that's basically associated to ourselves, so we know that if we're sending on our units that are, really well packaged, maybe they're bubble wrapped, we know that the customers are going to be receiving our units rather than bad units that might accidentally get associated to ourselves. So what you can do is you are going to go and save these barcodes, and then you're going to go and print them out. So once you do have that barcode printed out, then what you need to do is you need to be then sticking it over the pre-existing barcode. Now, why do we need to be sticking over the pre-existing barcode? Basically, so then only our barcode can get scanned. If we didn't put over the existing barcode, well, Amazon might go and scan the existing barcode, and now it's not associated to ourselves. Another thing to be aware of is how you package each item. Not every item needs bubble wrap, but especially if you're shipping in glass, you may be shipping in ceramics, so that could be stuff like candles, even though it's not obviously a ceramic. It can easily get broken. So what you're going to have to do for that sort of products is you are going to want to go and bubble wrap it. Now when you do go to the prep part of each item, it does tell you if it does need to be in a poly bag. We normally see this happen with liquids, so like shampoos, conditioners, hot sauces if you're sending in hot sauces. that stuff needs to be polybagged, mainly so it doesn't accidentally spill on everything, whereas of course breakable items need to be put into bubble wrap. Now if you don't do this, because you may wonder, why would I bother doing that? It's just going to cost me extra time and it's going to cost me extra money. Well, Amazon can go and delay sending your units in. They can just straight up refuse the units and send them back to you, or what they can do is they can charge you because they'll end up having to do it themselves. So once you've got all your units selected and the quantities that you're sending in, you've also now gone and prepped them. What you now need to go and do is you now need to go and complete the shipment. And what you can do here is you're going to go and choose which carrier you want. Now, Amazon is partnered with UPS and DPD, meaning you get very, very good rates on those in comparison to using a third party. And then what you'll end up doing is printing off 2 different labels, and they'll be on a size a little bit like this. Now, those 2 labels are going to be an FBA label. This is basically that Amazon, once they do receive the box, they know that that box is associated to your Amazon Seller Central account. And the other label is going to be a UPS, or it's going to be a shipment label. That is going to allow it to make itself to the fulfillment center in the first place. Now, when your products are in Amazon, they're potentially going to go through a few different phases. We can see transfer phase, we can see where they basically move it to another fulfillment center, and then finally your products will be available to be sold to the general public. Now, it's also important during this stage to keep on top of how many units you are sending into Amazon and how many units Amazon says they've received, because these discrepancies can be one of the main things that Amazon can actually reimburse you for, because they're basically losing your units. So those are really the core principles of starting an Amazon FBA account. You're making your account, you're finding your products, and you're sending it into Amazon. But something that's really overlooked, maybe because it's not so glamorous and a little bit ugly, is the finance side. The reality of, are you actually making money or is your business losing money? Now, one of the main problems that new sellers fall into is using Amazon Seller Central, and especially just using it at face value. Because the problem is, Amazon Seller Central shows you revenue, but it doesn't show you profit. Now you might think, well, there's no problem with just knowing how much money I'm going to go and receive off Amazon. But it's not even the amount of money you're going to go and receive off Amazon. Because between that number and what you actually end up receiving, you've got your cost of goods, you've got Amazon fees, you've got removals, you've got returns, and you've got plenty of other costs between there. And this is especially why a lot of brand new sellers think that their business is profitable when it actually isn't, because it's not a true reflection of how well their business is doing. So a lot of new sellers aren't aware, but there are loads of fees behind the scenes in Amazon. Now, a lot of people will be aware of 2 of the fees. The first one is referral fee. That is basically how much money the brands get as a result of you selling one of their products. And the second fee is the fulfillment fee. That's basically how much Amazon is taking for sending your products and maybe any packaging and sending them to the customers. But there are plenty of other fees. So one of the fees that especially a lot of new sellers aren't aware about is storage fees and age inventory fees. Now, it's all good if you've bought your products, you've sent them to Amazon and they've sold within 30 days. But after 30 days, that's when you're going to be hit with other charges, because Amazon basically doesn't want to be holding too much of your stock. So if you sent in 2 months worth of stock or 3 months worth of stock, and especially when you're a new seller, gauging how many months worth of stock you have is a lot easier said than done. So now as a result, you're going to be penalized for basically sending in too much to Amazon, and that's going to go and eat away your profits. And the problem is, Amazon Seller Central doesn't show you this. Now, these fees per product are actually really, really small, but the problem is, when you've got multiple units and you've got a lot of different products in your catalog, they can really add up, and a lot of sellers just don't understand where their money is going, but it's all these super small fees basically accumulating. Now, something that kind of sucks to have to tell new sellers, but Amazon is really clumsy of your stock. Like, your stock, sending your stock into Amazon, they can lose your stock there. In their warehouse, they can just lose your stock there. Also in the warehouse, they can just damage your stock. Oh, don't worry, because even if you go and sell your products and people return them, 1, sometimes they don't return them whatsoever, 2, they returned damaged. So you've also got loads and loads of stock that's just lost there and money that's lost, unless you go and chase those reimbursements. Because for all those reimbursements, Amazon owes you money because it's their fault, not yours. And it's not hard to believe, but because they owe you money, they're not in a hurry. In fact, half the time they don't even tell you that they do owe you money. What you have to go and do is you have to go and chase Amazon yourself. We see 4-figure sums being left on the table by Amazon sellers all the time because they just don't understand what they're looking for. But everything that I've just explained there, well, that's where SellerToolKit comes in to go and fix those problems. For example, when we're talking about all those hidden fees, well, SellerToolKit does one of 2 things. One, it shows you all the fees per product, but also at the end of the month or per 30 days or per 7 days, it can show you all those other fees and how that's affecting your total profit. And maybe you're overwhelmed because there's multiple different ways how Amazon can lose your stock and you need to be reimbursed for it. Well, SellerToolKit identifies and flags you all of those discrepancies and creates a pre-made case to go and send to Amazon. And it also has a smart stock replenishment tool. This is basically a tool that says, okay, you're starting to run out of this ace and we recommend stocking up this much, otherwise you're going to run out in this many days. This allows you to restock the products in the highest priority rather than overstocking in one product and running out of another. So if you finally want to know if your Amazon business is making money, make sure to go and click on the link in the description to start a free trial of SellerToolKit. It will be showing you exactly where your money is going, it will show you what Amazon owes you, and it will be showing you if each individual product is actually worth selling, all in one place. So make sure to go and click on the top link in the description to go and start your free trial of SellerToolKit. You do not need any payment details required. Also, if you want to improve the logistics on your Amazon business, make sure to go and check out this video right here.